right. Well, welcome everyone to our legislative update or year-end wrap-up town hall. I am your assembly member, Alex Lee, and it's my great pleasure to represent the two counties of Alameda and Santa Clara counties, as well as the cities of Milpitas, my hometown, Northern San Jose, Newark, Fremont, and Santa Clara. It's my great honor to be representing you. Well, today what we're really going to do is just have a brief overview about everything we've been up to in our first year in office. But before we get into that, I wanted to acknowledge all the amazing elected officials who have RSVP'd today and are attending with us today. First, I want to acknowledge Santa Clara Councilmember Suds Jane, Santa Clara Councilmember Kevin Park, Santa Clara Valley Water Board Member Richard Santos, Milpitas Unified School District Board Member Michael Sy, Milpitas Mayor Rich Tran, Fremont Unified School Board Member Desiree Campbell, Fremont Unified School Board Member Diane Jones, Santa Clara Unified School Board Member Jim Canova, and Mike Honda, our former Congress member. So I am very happy that all of you could join us today, as well as everyone else who is in our Zoom room today. A couple things, this housekeeping rules is, this, of course, is going to be recorded and sent to everyone. So if you have anything you want to go back to or watch, it's readily available to you. So it's going to be sent out and posted, I believe, on our website too. If you have any questions, we will be doing a Q&A portion at the latter half of this event. So if you have questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A function on Zoom, the bottom of your screen, or do it on Facebook, wherever you're watching this from. We're always happy to answer your questions. And if there's something on the moment I don't know, I will get back to you. I'll just give you that promise right now. But yeah, so thank you so much for joining us. It's definitely been a very busy first year in office for me, from fighting the pandemic and planning its recovery to making smart and timely investments for the future. It's been a privilege and honor to serve you in the State Assembly. This year, we tackled some of the most pressing issues facing residents, such as assisting constituents with their unemployment, to the eviction moratorium, and a lot more we're going to keep going into, or going to get into more. Yeah, so let's look at our opening metrics. So just by the numbers, how we are doing this year. I always want to give you the facts and numbers so you can also give an assessment for yourself. So since taking office in December 2020, almost going to be a year in a month and a half, we have closed and helped over 2,200 people with their constituent cases. And this largely is EDD or unemployment cases. That's over 1,600 cases that have been closed. Yes, there are still many that are pending, and we're still working with a lot of families to figure those out. But it goes to show that even in our Silicon Valley, a lot of people were really hurting during the pandemic recession, and people still continue to be hurting. So we're here to provide that assistance. So if you or any loved ones or your friends need help with their unemployment assistance, please do contact our office. And including, or maybe not including this town hall, but we held 11 town halls. So almost one every month, or at least, well, so I guess some months we've done more than one. We've held 11 town halls, all of them at the moment virtual. And I'm really hoping next year we can do some in person. We've also done 2 highway cleanup events, both partnering with the Milpitas City Council members and mayor as well. And those have been really successful. Recognize there's been a lot of rubbish on the exits and on-ramps to the highways, and we are working with Caltrans and our local partners and amazing volunteer organizations that really come out and force and clean up our roadways. We've also had over 100+ virtual office hour appointments. So that's one-on-one Zoom appointments. Hopefully, again, we will do those in person soon. But if you're ever interested in chatting with me 10, 15 minutes at a time about some issues or things you're observing in the world, please do reach out to our office and we can make you one-on-one time. Those are really great. We do them about once a month, and we do, like 20-ish appointments, depending on how much getting people sign them, but usually get emails about those. But those are really great too. And sometimes we source some really great ideas from constituents too. And then we hosted 3 Heritage Month events. We did the LGBTQ plus Pride event month, Pride event. We also did an API Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month event. And then most recently, we did a Latino Heritage Month event, really honoring the incredible diversity of our district and all the communities that live within it. And we're definitely going to hopefully have more and more events as the years go on. We also toured and met with 25+ community organizations that serve residents here in the district, and those range from direct organizations that serve the community and helping provide meals or assistance, and a lot of other great or community health organizations, a lot of great organizations that we're learning from and hoping to partner with more in the future to get direct aid to a lot of folks. We also volunteered with another 25 plus organizations, handing out meals, really making sure that they have volunteers and building awareness about the great mission they are, because there's a lot of great organizations out there that are providing a lot of help to people, especially in need. And I would say that, a lot of people in my first office have said that they really want to get more involved and volunteer more or get involved in the community somehow. And you can definitely always reach out to us if you're having trouble finding an organization you want to get more involved with or use your spare time or resources with. We will definitely be able to do that. So we'll be able to share that with you if you're ever interested in something like that. All right, and now we're going to get into some of the meat of things. So we're going to talk about the state budget. So of the 6 committees that I have served on in my first year, one of them is, in fact, the budget committee. And if we can go to the next slide. I serve on the budget committee. So basically everything that deals with appropriation and doling out of our state tax dollars, including some from the federal assistance now, I have some hand in. It's definitely a very complicated committee for a first term member like myself, but luckily because I have experience with being legislative policy staff in the past, it's not so new to me. I sit on the budget committee and also I specifically sit on the subcommittee for education as well. So as you can see from the big pie chart, as you already know, our budget was in a much better place than anticipated at the beginning of the pandemic. The stock market has really rebounded and top earners have really kept earning really well, despite a lot of heartache with our small businesses and a lot of people falling into unemployment. The economy still is staying strong. We passed a $26.26 billion budget. It's a billion-dollar budget, which allowed us to make smart investments for the future, including in education, wildfire prevention, drought mitigation, tackling homelessness, and healthcare expansion. California's general fund, the budget which we mostly draw from, relies largely on 3 resources, as you see, or 3 revenues: personal income tax, sales and use tax, and the corporation tax, which are the largest 3. If we can go to the next one about, there we go. So then this is also showing you where our $250 billion budget is going towards as well. I also fought for fully covering owed rental debt for COVID because our small landlords deserve to be made whole, and those who have struggled during COVID aren't set back further. So in addition to the very new and challenging times we're in, early in the budget, I really fought very hard for a rental assistance program to make sure small landlords and of course renters were given the opportunity to pay back their debts. A lot of folks lost their job very acutely. And we want to make sure people don't fall into homelessness and increase our homelessness rates, but also make sure people are whole as much as possible. If you still need assistance with that program, while there are challenges with that one, let us know and we can hopefully get you the right resources and get you in the right way. In our budget, we're also putting funding into our rainy day fund because we don't know what could happen in the next couple of years, right? We hope the economy will stay strong, but it's important. And as you can also see just from this kind of brief periphery of the pie chart, we spend 31% of it at health, human services. Obviously, that's a lot in Medi-Cal and Medicare. And then K-12 education, which is obviously all our schools. Our K-12 schools are elementaries and our middle schools and high schools, which I have a hand in helping fund, and our higher education. And combined higher education and K-12 is 33% of our budget. So the largest single chunk is education itself. And to talk about education, we're going to go to the next slide. We invested $123.9 billion, as the B, in education. And that's the highest level of school and per pupil funding in California's history. While that, I believe, is still not the level we deserve and we ought to be, it's historically the highest. I just wanted to make that differentiation. So even while there are a lot of things that have been very challenging in the economy, we've really prioritized our schools and our education, especially our children's education. So I put some things here on the slide here to show you some of the highlights, but we're putting $3 billion of government school sites into full service community schools with wraparound mental health and social and family services. There's another $1 billion for summer and after school programs to make up for any learning lag that might have happened during COVID. And then we have $150 million, which I personally fought for quite hard, to increase in our career technical education. And career tech is basically another pathway for kids, especially who could enter into like the trades or culinary school or a lot of great jobs out there, but it provides a really viable pathway. And I was really happy to get money for our own local Silicon Valley Metro Ed, which is Metro Ed is the school district for career tech education. So very important, and hopefully we're gonna do more of that. So our kids have as many options as they want, right? Either they can go to college or they can work on getting really fulfilling jobs too. We also put $500 million over 5 years for the Golden State Teacher Grants, so we can hopefully recruit more teachers. Understandably, very hard to be a teacher right now, especially during the pandemic, and we've seen a lot of early retirements, but we want to make sure that new generations of teachers are coming in, making sure that our class sizes are not too large. We also eliminated age and timeout of high school requirements for Cal Grant and community college students, expanding that aid to over 130,000 students. So really important that we are making all those investments. We also, of course, created the new grade, which is transitional kindergarten, which is gonna really take effect in the next couple of years and really gonna be exciting. So I also sit on, of course, the budget committee and the budget subcommittee for education. I also sit on the education policy committee itself. So I really wanna also thank all the great parents, students even I worked with, and school officials throughout the year to make sure that while as challenging as it has been to have Zoom school and pandemic school, I think we've really come out pretty resilient, and definitely still a lot of things to fix and patch up, but I think we've come out a lot stronger than we expected. Okay, let's move to the second priority. And as you all know, a huge priority of mine is fixing our housing crisis and our homelessness crisis. This year, we really stepped that up. We put $10 billion in housing programs and $12 billion tax homelessness. Now, I know some folks may be shocked by that sticker price. And yeah, it is a lot of money, but unfortunately, we've come to a point where we have neglected our housing problems and the unhoused for so long that it's kind of akin to like a broken roof. That's what I kind of make analogy to, is like, you definitely can definitely, if you have a leaky broken roof, it's going to cost more, especially the longer and longer you wait, right? And that's really where we're at. We waited so long that the whole thing is collapsing on itself, and it's going to cost a lot of money, but we want to do it right. We want to get people off the streets and make sure our homeless rates do not continue to escalate. So it's really important. And I know a lot of you are also caring about making sure that our communities stay affordable and yourself and your children can stay housed in our community, as well as making sure that we are getting people housed and making sure we're reducing homelessness too. So some of the budget highlights is $2 billion for flexible homelessness assistance to local governments over 2 years. 10% of that is reserved for youth experience homelessness. We also have $850 million to incentivize infill development and smart growth. We've $800 million to preserve the state's affordable housing stock. So very important to make sure people are housed, so they don't fall into homelessness. And we have $500 million to provide funds to nonprofit and community-based organizations to make sure they can acquire foreclosed property and operate as affordable housing. And then we have $10 million for a pilot project over idle commercial property to affordable housing. So we're really trying to do all we can and be creative about our solutions to making sure that, making sure that we can house as many folks as possible. And one other thing I wanted to note is, we also put $1.1 billion to clean up streets by partnering with local governments to pick up trash and beautifying downtown as well. All right, now let's talk about wildfires. Yes, and a lot of folks are also quite concerned, obviously, by wildfires. Last year, we had historically large fires that surrounded our South Bay community, South Bay and East Bay communities. We had, of course, the CZU fire in the Santa Cruz region, then we had the SCU fires in the foothills, and a lot of folks kind of woke up to the dangers of how close wildfires could be. So really important, as a state, we're really committed to making sure that we have resources and investments to make sure, one, we can obviously fight the fires, and two, most importantly, to prevent the fires. So we put $1.5 billion on wildfire response. So funds to reduce wildfire risk and improve the health of our forests and our wildlands. And of course, notably, we have the hills in our area and of course the wetlands. This includes, includes investments for community hardening and fire vulnerable areas, strategic fuel breaks, and fuel reduction projects. And we approach to restore landscapes for resilient wildlands and a framework to expand the wood products market and supporting sustainable local economies. We also put $5.1 billion towards the drought. Obviously, another challenge that comes with climate change and the climate crisis. We put the We're implementing the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act to improve water supply security and quality and projects support wildlife and habitat restoration. And I know obviously we're in a drought and hopefully we'll get some really good rains and we're all doing our parts to conserve water, but we really want to be smart about our budgeting of water too. And then we also put $3.7 billion over 3 years. And this funding aims to address the impacts of extreme heat, including urban greening projects, grants to support community resilience centers, and projects that reduce the urban heat island effect. The package also supports coastal protection and adaptation measures, efforts to protect and conserve California's diverse ecosystems, and community-based investments to build resilience, such as grants to support environmental justice-focused initiatives and funding for the California Climate Action Corps. We also got $1.1 billion over 2 years to support sustainable agriculture practices and create a resilient, equitable food system. So these are, at a glance, the big billions we are putting, hopefully, towards climate change. Okay, and now we're going to talk about the legislation that I have personally worked on this year. So in addition to obviously being on the budget committees, and that's a year-round work itself, we also author bills. Every member authors a number of bills. This year, I was able to introduce and pass 7 bills that got out of legislature. So obviously, just like how a bill becomes a law song, we passed it out of the Assembly, we passed it to the Senate, and we sent 7 bills total to the governor's office. I introduced 15 bills in my first year, which is a lot of bills, and we got 7 of them to the finish line. Many of them, which I'll talk about later, are 2-year bills, meaning we're going to keep working on them in 2022. But I want to just go over some of the highlights of my signed bills. So as you can see, we got some bills, 7 bills signed here. I'll talk about some of them right now. So AB 1061, this one protects mobile home residents. We have a lot of mobile home parks that are in our district, and we want to make sure that folks are protected from unfair and often arbitrary water charges. So if you ever have experience with getting a water service fee that feels arbitrary or really strange to you, let us know. This is a bill that's protecting a lot of folks from being, from protecting folks from being profiteered off of just for basic water. Okay, and then we're going to talk about AB 1337. So this bill is going to keep our BART stations hopefully safer. With the opening of Berryessa and the Milpitas BART stations, we definitely want to have more and more people riding transit and taking it to work and making sure that we get more cars off the road, but we also want to make sure that these stations are safe. This bill, because of some technical kind of government sharing practices, this bill basically clarifies that BART police can use what's called essentially a stay away order, and that's preferable to obviously giving people felonies and putting them in prison. But these are for folks that make it maybe unpleasant to ride, but aren't the worst offenses. But we want to make sure people feel safe and confident that they can take BART to where they need to be. Okay, let's go to. So yeah, those are 2 of the bills I want to talk about. I also introduced 2 other bills that were about reforming our criminal justice system, make it fairer and more just as well. And we also had a transportation bill about state funds. And now I just want to talk very briefly about 2 of the bills that got vetoed by the governor. So very disappointing, but as some of you may know, I authored a bill, AB 1444, that would have really protected our small businesses. I'm sure that a lot of folks have now experienced ordering online from their favorite restaurants because, especially during the pandemic, a lot of businesses had to go online. And there are some not so scrupulous business practices, especially from big tech. And we wanted to make sure that there was a fair market for that. And so if you can, definitely go to your favorite restaurants and help them out. But we had this bill that would have made it much more fair, and they wouldn't have extra fees and call forwarding. Fortunately, got vetoed, but we're still going to be working, especially on small businesses. And if you yourself have a stake or run a small business, let us know if there's ideas you want us to work on to make sure it is still a fair marketplace to operate in. Another bill that was vetoed, unfortunately, was AB 339. AB 339 basically is a bill to keep doing this. We found that during the pandemic, city council meetings, state governments, we can meet online, and you could have public comment online so people could comment and call in and make a public comment, so that if you are someone who would normally, if they wanted to make a public comment at city council, have to take a time off of work, get childcare, or a number of factors, or transportation, and to sit there for hours and hours, that would not be really fair and really block you from public participation. So we said, as we learned from the pandemic, we should keep doing this. We should keep doing Zoom options or phone options, and it's worked out pretty well and expanded the amount of people that can participate. We definitely made a lot of concessions in this bill. There's a lot of opposition, unfortunately, to this bill from government associations. And we made a lot of concessions to it. And we were hoping this was going to be an important, modest first step in making sure that more people have access to democracy. Unfortunately, it was vetoed, which is very disappointing. But we will continue to make sure that there are more and more avenues for people to participate. There are actually, luckily, in even our own county, cities that are stepping up, cities and school boards stepping up to provide constant public access this way. So, if you want to make your voice and opinion heard, you don't have to wait down in City Hall for hours and hours. I believe that, this right to petition your government should be protected. All right, now let's talk about other legislation. So here's some other major legislation. I co-authored a lot of bills, meaning essentially I worked with other folks, other authors to work on their bills. Their name is the primary one, but we work as a team to get these done. So we passed this year SB 2, which basically creates a process for police decertification of bad actors. These are really folks with careers and histories, or bad actors who have done things that are pretty egregious and cost taxpayers, especially in litigation. And there really isn't a process right now to decertify and essentially make sure they don't just rotate from one police department to another. And SB 2 creates that process. So we're holding bad actors and law enforcement accountable. That's really important. We also co-authored AB 367, which requires public colleges and universities to provide free menstrual products on campus to make sure that everyone who needs it has these products. And we also co-authored with Lorena Gonzalez, Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez, AB 286, that prohibits a food delivery platform from charging more than the price listed and taking a portion of it designated as a tip. This bill did get signed. I was really happy that we worked on this one. And this one is in conjunction with my other 1444 that did get vetoed. But this one essentially says, if you go on an app of your choice and it says, your favorite burger on that app is $12, but when you go to the restaurant, it's like $10. That something is amiss. And that's practice this regulates. And we want to make sure that when you're tipping in the app, that tip actually goes to the restaurant, and the tip doesn't actually just go to the app, because that was also something that was happening. So when you thought you were tipping your favorite restaurateur, you were actually tipping a big tech company. So those are some bills I'm quite happy that we worked on. And here's some other major legislation. We passed SB 343, which restricts what kind of plastic packaging can use a triangular symbol for recycling. So it's called the chasing arrows. There's actually a lot of plastic packaging, or a lot of, I should say, products out there that have chasing arrows that aren't actually recyclable. So it's really, in a lot of sense, feeding our wish cycling, which is unfortunate, but also highlights how much waste we're actually contributing. We also, of course, passed SB 9, which allows homeowners to build a duplex or split their current residential lot. And that's obviously something a property owner exercises their own right to do so, especially when we're confronting our housing crisis. And I also was happy to co-author SB 14, which is, it changes the education code to allow absences due to mental and behavioral health to be counted excuse absences. So if your student, your child has a mental or behavioral health day, they can use that as one of their days. All right. Here's some other bills we did. These are bills that got unfortunately vetoed that we passed. I regret to inform you that this bill for Cal Grant reform, it got vetoed. It would have expanded to 160,000 more students. They're going to come back. Cal Grant reform is something very big, especially to make sure more students get to go to access and go to college. But that was quite a big setback. AB 1487 by Assemblymember Gabriel would have created a homelessness prevention fund, which is essentially a legal aid fund for people facing eviction court. That one got vetoed, which is also a big disappointment. And then AB 1238 by Assemblymember Ting was going to decriminalize jaywalking. And that one also got vetoed, unfortunately. And, a lot of the studies show that really criminalization of jaywalking doesn't improve the safety. It really is used as a target. So yeah, those are really unfortunate bills that got vetoed. And then here are some of the highlights of the 2-year bills, meaning we're going to keep working on them, or they've taken 2 years to continue to be working on. These are some of the ones that I am still working on. So I introduced AB 310 and ACA 8, which is basically a tax on extreme wealth. It would create a 1% tax on extreme wealth of people of $50 million or more in assets, or $1 billion in assets. Now, this is also assets that excludes real property because of our own property laws in California. So these are people who are super, super wealthy and do not get accurately captured in their tax payments with income tax, because so much of your wealth is tied up in assets. So that's a clear distinction. This is not an income tax, it's an asset tax. And this is something that was very deeply inspired also by Senator Elizabeth Warren, the national scene. And we're working closely with those folks. But this could have generated us $22 billion every year. And that, of course, with all our laws would have meant more money to education, and to also make sure this is tax justice, to make sure that the very extreme few in California are paying their fair share. Just think of anything else I want to say about that. Yes. Yeah, well, California, the income tax is really good at capturing most of us. When you graduate into extreme wealth, income tax and all those traditional measures are not very good anymore. And the effective tax rate for billionaires is much, much lower than even people who make minimum wage. And then another bill I'm really excited to keep working on, and we're going to actually have a select committee about it on Wednesday, is the Social Housing Act, AB 386. Social housing is going to be an immense way to solve our housing crisis without the profit motive. We know we have an extreme depth and need for affordable housing that is sustainable, that fits with our characters of our community, and that really works to get more people housed. But there's also a lot of skepticism about the private market because, of course, there's a profit motive. And once you take out the profit motive, we can build a lot more affordable housing in different portfolios. And our vision is really to take the successes of European and Asian examples, as well as learning from the mistakes in this country, to make sure that we can really have housing as a human right that's built. And I'm really going to look forward to doing this one, because they're really going to be neighborhoods that are mixed income and self-sustaining financially because of that mixes of incomes. In the past, and I won't go too much into it because I think we'll have a special session just about social housing. But in the past in America, what we've really done is we warehouse the poor. We just put a lot of folks in 100% subsidized housing forever. But if you have a mix of portfolios of incomes, right, people, and really integrate that, right, and not just segregate people who are poor, we can make sure these neighborhoods are self-sustaining over the long run as well. So this is going to be a real game changer, I think, in our housing crisis, and make sure that we have more options for localities to ask for help and to make sure they can fill their affordable housing needs too. Okay. And then, of course, I think I saw a question about this, but AB 1400 CalCare, Universal Single Payer Healthcare, is going to be up for its first vote in January. My colleague from San Jose as well, Ash Kalra, is working really hard on this. In fact, he's doing a tour in Canada where they do have a single payer health program that actually started in one province. So a province to a whole country, just like how we're doing a state, hopefully to a whole country. So he's doing that right now. He's really hard at work on CalCare, and we're hopefully going to really see a lot of momentum with universal healthcare in January. So stay tuned for those updates. I also, on my first day in office in December, introduced AB 20, which is the Corporate Free Elections Act, and that prohibited contributions from business entities to candidates in California. But did you know, if you're running for Congress or running for president, it's already illegal. You can't take money directly from businesses. And I think that should be also the case in California. So that bill is, we're still working on that one, and clean money is very, very important, and especially in the integrity of elections. Oh, wow, we're already in Q&A. Yeah, I guess we're in Q&A. That was fast. Okay, yeah, wow, perfect timing soon. So we're gonna go into our Q&A portion right now. So I just went over all our bills, things working on the budget. And if you have any questions you wanna ask now, put them in the Q&A function, and I am going to have my staff help me look out for questions. So if you have anything, please put in the chat on the QA function, and hopefully we can do that. All righty. So my team, how are we gonna do this thing? Okay, we have a question from Jiyoung Carolyn Park from Los Angeles. Will you reintroduce a bill like AB 339? Thanks for all you do. Thank you. We're having a lot of discussions about it. I'm trying to regroup and figure out what is the best way to modernize our public participation practices. Frankly, I'm quite disappointed because we had such a compromise measure and that got vetoed. So we're regrouping, we're figuring that out, but I'm still committed to modernizing how we do public comment and how we conduct our transparency and government meetings. So Lisa from Fremont asked, are there any immediate plans for major improvements to the quality of K-12 education or to lower college tuition? Great question. So as I talked about earlier today in our slides, we put a historic amount of money towards our K-12 education system as well as our colleges, and that will hopefully help a lot, right? I'm also quite disappointed. Obviously, we got our Cal Grant reform efforts vetoed because Cal Grant reform, as you know, is financial aid for so many students, and if and having that vetoed really kind of sets us back on making sure that less and less students leave college and graduate college without debt. But we are going to keep doing that. Obviously, this year in the budget, we put a lot of money to making sure that our classrooms and our teachers and the quality of education is still good in the K-12 level. I think especially as the economy hopefully continues to improve, we're going to put more money in that. And something kind of from the capital expense, the physical expense of schools, we really are prioritizing making sure our schools stay updated in their facilities, especially, obviously with COVID, there's a lot of talk about HVAC systems and old buildings. So we really are going to make sure we keep doing that. All right, let me see the next question. Fran from San Jose asks, what actions are taking place at the state level to address a climate shift? Sorry, scrolled up. There's a lot of questions. Thank you for asking so many questions. What actions are taking place at the state level to address a climate shift to long-term permanent droughts? Also, great question. I talked about it a little bit in the budget process, but we're putting collectively $1.5 billion on wildfire response. So obviously that's an acute climate symptom. $5.1 billion in drought investments, and $3.77 billion in climate resiliency package. I won't rehash exactly all the great money that's being put in there, but that goes all the way from obviously suppressing and fighting the fires that exist to preventing fires, and then making sure that we have the infrastructure to conserve, to clean, and to what am I looking for? Oh, store the water we need to over the time. Okay. Congressman Honda asks, what's the total revenues for K-12 ed, and what are the sources of the revenue? If you want to, can we go back to the slide of the budget pie charts real quick? Whoever doing, okay, there we go. So just really quickly to show you again, on the revenue side, if we can go on the revenue real quick. So everything in the general fund, if you think about it, is one bank account, essentially, more or less. This is an oversimplification. So, with the various different taxes and personal income tax and all that stuff, that goes into one pot. And then to the expenditure side, on the general fund expenditure side, can we go to the next slide, please? All of that money we collect is then put into these categories. And while there are, I'm super oversimplifying right now, there are statutory and constitutional requirements about how much you fund certain things. The bulk of it, as you can see, goes to education. So K-12 education, specifically from kindergarten to 12th grade, is 25% of the entire budget. So that's 25% of $262.5 billion. So that's a lot of money. But those are the total sources. And then obviously, of course, at the local level, this is just the state level, right? Your schools are also funded in part by your local property taxes and then federal assistance too. All right. Thank you for all the brilliant questions. And if there are questions, again, we do not get to, or I do not know the answer to, we will follow up with you. I like this question from Edward. I guess this might not be a question so much as a comment, but corporate tax at 8% compared to personal income tax seems a little unfair. Do corporations have trouble to buying food or making rent, which can decrease their taxes, or do they budget for dental and vision using the money to get from their employees? Yes, as you noted, this is actually an effort earlier in the year we tried to do. We tried to restore the corporate tax rate to the 1980s level. I forget what year in the 80s, which was the corporate tax was reduced during the Governor Reagan or even the presidential Reagan era. And as you notice, the effective corporate tax is pretty low. We were trying to raise it back, restore it back to 1980 levels, and actually dedicate that specifically so we have a sustainable revenue source for homelessness. And if you live in the Bay Area, you know, obviously, there's a lot of correlations and intersections between big tech, gentrification, and homelessness. There's some interplay there, but we wanted to make it fairer. That measure did not ultimately pass, but we did get the money for homelessness. We just didn't get the funding mechanism. Cool. How can, there's a question here. How can folks best advocate for the 2-year bills? Well, definitely you can let folks, like your representatives know you care about 2-year bills. So whether it be our social housing bill or healthcare for all, AB 1400, please let your office know, your state legislators know, whether it be your state assembly member or state senator, especially if I'm not your state assembly member, you should definitely advocate for it. But it's also helpful to let us know, right? We always love to have feedback from within our community. So if there's something you're interested about our bill, like the social housing bill, feel free to write to us too. And put in the chat by my office is if you have bill ideas for next year, because we are in the process of putting our bill ideas still, you can go to our website and there's a legislative proposal request form. Angelica Ramos Allen asks, oh, I'm so sorry. I did not recognize Angelica Ramos Allen from Supervisor Student Ellenberg's office, as well as Marley Smith from David Cohen, San Jose City Council member's office on here too. Thank you so much. Angelica asks, can you give us a preview on what your process is for starting to think about next year's bills? And do you solicit input from the community and local elected officials? Short answer is yes. We definitely want to hear your ideas. In fact, I want to say we've at least looked into a handful of community sourced ideas. And if you have an idea, you can definitely submit it online on my website. There's a legislative proposal request, but I'm always accepting ideas and want to hear people out. But if you see a problem in the community and you think you have an idea, feel free to please send it to us. Next Saturday, I want to say, or I'm not sure when my staff, next Saturday, we're going to actually have a event specifically for you to come talk to me and talk to me about your bill ideas. It's going to be called Boba and Bill. So you can have Boba and talk to me about bill ideas. It's next Saturday at 3 p.m. So that's October the 30th. I think it's the 30th, right? Okay. Well, it's one of these Saturdays. One of these Saturdays we have Boba and Bills, the 23rd. So it's this Saturday. Sorry, excuse me. It's this Saturday, October 23rd at Toko Toko Tea in Berryessa. We're going to have Boba and Bills event. So if you want to come and talk to me about your bill ideas, please come and enjoy some boba at a local small business too. Information will be sent about that tomorrow to our email listserv, so you can find out more. But yeah, come with your bill ideas and meet me in person. So that's actually exciting because it's, I think, one of our first in-person kind of events. So it's maybe outside and it'll be nice. So pretty cool. So definitely come by with any bill ideas. All right, what other questions are we going to take? Well, Catherine asks, a good question from Catherine is, are you thinking about doing any bills about education next year? I actually did, I want to say at least, well, I technically did 2, but I did 2 bills about education, 2 legislative actions about education. One, which we heard about, we got into the budget, was for career technical education, so that students and kids have a lot of career options in life and can be trained to do a lot of great things. You know, college is great, but maybe it's not the choice for everyone. The second thing is we actually got a bill stemming from a situation that happened in Fremont, where it would basically have said that you can't build a school, whether it be public, private, or charter, on a basically a toxic waste dump. That bill, unfortunately, was there's no votes to, right? But it was basically held, so that effort stalled and died. We're trying to figure out how we can revive that effort, but it's really important that schools are not built on toxic waste dumps or hazardous sites, so that people can go to school and or parents can send their kids to school and not feel there's any hazards there. Marley Smith from David Cohen's office asks, what can we expect from the funding outcomes of the climate resilience legislation of our coastal communities? I'm gonna ask if Aubrey or Maria are on here still, if they have an answer for that one, because I don't remember all this. Unfortunately, I don't remember all the specifics about every funding category. As you can imagine, we have a $250 billion budget. I don't know if my staff are still on.
Yeah, I can add a little bit. So earlier, the Assembly member mentioned the $3.7 billion climate resilience package, and that includes money to support coastal protection and adaptation. And there were also some bills that were run this year. Not all of them passed, unfortunately, but that's definitely an issue that the legislature is working on.
Thank you, Maria. Another question is, do you think high-speed rail is salvageable? Short answer is yes. It will be easy? No. There's a lot of discussion about right now how we can appropriately have oversight and resource allocations to it. And, I'll be honest, right? I am a big supporter of making sure that in California, we can be the first state to prove a 1960 technology can work, because we really need to have more transit options to take people across California. And it's game changer in so many ways, right? One, it can reduce traffic and obviously carbon emissions from traffic. Two, it can enable people to live farther away but conveniently, and a whole host of things, and obviously demonstrate world-class transportation. I can tell you right now, high-speed rail is being a competitive race because Florida and Texas are all trying to do these things, and even Nevada from Vegas to California is trying to be attempted. But we have real challenges getting there, right? The Central Valley line, actually, which I'm actually going to see the progress they have so far in a couple of weeks. They're making progress in the Central Valley line, but they really have struggled to get the Bay Area portions and the Southern California portion, which in my opinion, are the most vital components and will be the most challenging, expensive parts, have not been done. So we really need to make sure that we're committed to this goal, because if we are serious about getting more cars off the road, reducing a carbon footprint, and economically making sure people can travel and live further away, we have to be serious about these options and getting more transportation options. One of the committees that I have the honor of serving on is the Transportation Committee, and our chair is taking a very hard look at that and making sure that we can do more to make sure that this dream is a reality. Edward asks, if I'm retired with Medicare, can I also use CalCare? The short answer is yes. We really want to make sure, obviously, CalCare is universal, right? Making sure that everyone has access to dental, vision, and quality health care. And that's going to be really important to make sure that we have universal health care. It's not to kick people off of existing things. And in fact, with Medicare, at least, it's the same funding source, right? It's federal government money. And we're hoping to utilize and repurpose the federal money that gets come to Medi-Cal and Medicare into CalCare too, as part of the funding direction. Catherine, thank you for messaging about that. Thank you for being the Government Affairs Policy Director at the California Association of Student Councils. Yes, someone will reach out to you and we can talk more about that bill. Marley from San Jose asked, and I might have my office more in depth explain this one to you, or in the future offline. But Marley asked, what can we expect for funding towards planning and mitigating flood risk response from North San Jose, El Viso, and Fremont shorelines? I don't know about a specific answer about specific geographies yet, but if Maria has answers to that, happy to share that if Maria has that.
I don't have a specific answer for that region in particular, but I'm happy to follow up with you about that if you want to message me or any of the staff your contact information. And thank you for that question.
Yeah, and we're also working on climate resiliency bonds and measures in general, especially protect tidal coastlines and wetlands. So you'll also be seeing more money going that way. And it's also a jointly Bay Area and LA kind of effort too. Cool. Okay, we have a question, which is, which bill are you most excited about for the next legislative session? I am, of course, very excited about AB 387, our Social Housing Act, to create a new local lead agency to solve the housing crisis, because it's going to be a game changer in a lot of ways. Because we have to be able to provide more affordable housing while also keeping it out of the speculative market for a variety of reasons. And we can't do that without having social housing and a lead agency to do so. As you can imagine, there's actually some great examples out there in the United States too. Right now, property development is a private game. Right? You can take land and you can make oodles and oodles of money off of it, or you can develop it however way you want to do it. But the public has no mechanism to do the same thing. So imagine now, California Housing Authority, social housing agency, basically doing the same thing, but the public the profit that comes from it comes back to the people, either in affordable housing or in making sure it returning to the state of California. So it's really amazing. We can use the same strategy of portfolios and mixed income neighborhoods and mixed use, and really provide housing as a human right. Okay, and someone asks, at both the Capitol and in district, what are you most proud of this past year? That's a good question. I would say the Capitol, I'm proud of two things. Something that, you won't really see my name attached to it, but part of a lot of the negotiations we had, especially early in the pandemic, was there was a big push to have a complete return to in-person instruction for schools. And remember, this is before the vaccines. This is like early spring. And I knew in our community we were not quite ready for that. And I think still to this day, there are some families that aren't comfortable with that. So we instead changed that to an incentive grant. So basically school districts that want to do it, we'll give you the money to transition back to in-person. And if you don't, you don't. And a variety, different school districts went different ways. And we wanted to make sure it wasn't a one size fits all and have still local control over the health of our community. So that was something I'm really proud of. And of course, I was really proud of, at least twice we extended the eviction moratorium and then getting a rental relief program designed. Very far from perfect, but hard fight. We got that done at least. And, we're hard because, there aren't a lot of people who are fighting for these issues. And it's just very difficult. Very difficult. And then in a district, I guess I'm very proud of the fact that we helped 2,200 people with their cases. And they're not all unemployment, certainly, but a lot of people who we helped navigate really dense government bureaucracy in the state with, and really help them with their issues and hopefully change their lives for the better. And I'm really proud of that. That stuff is hard for everyone involved, but I'm glad that we got that through, especially when it comes to unemployment assistance. So those are good. Alrighty. Let me see. Sorry, just looking at all the things. All right. I am hearing now this is the last question we'll take for the night. And just remember, this is recorded. So if you want to go back and watch anything for any reason, you can come watch it again. But at any time too, if you ever want to talk one-on-one, you can either come to our virtual office hours, you can book an appointment, just reaching out to our office and emailing us or calling us, whatever works for you. Or come to our Boba and Bills event this Saturday at 3 p.m. and you can talk to me about your bill ideas. So those all work. And if I didn't get to your questions tonight, there were still quite a few. We'll hopefully get to you down a later time. So last question comes from Catherine. So Catherine is asking, PG&E seems to be pointed to in at least some of the fires. Are they being held accountable for any damages caused by any negligence on their part? Are there any reparations, personal losses being made to them? It's a good question. It's a complicated one. I definitely think PG&E has a very big role in a lot of these fires, right? I mean, a lot of it is because they have not updated their infrastructure to meet the climate demands, right? To meet the climate needs. It's very complicated because they're pseudo public entity, pseudo in some sense, where we bailed them out twice before I was there, because obviously we need the power to work and we need to keep having power flowing, but they do have to face a lot of accountability in these measures. There have been a lot, especially before I got to the legislature this year, a lot of accounting measures being placed, and I don't know if Maria knows more of this, but I believe they went to bankruptcy court even. So there's a lot of restructuring, a lot of accountability happening right now. But yeah, they need to be held a lot more accountable, honestly, with all the damages they create to the environment, to personal property, to personal lives. I don't know, Maria, if you want to comment on anything about PG&E.
I think you nailed that. You covered everything I was going to say, actually. But if you'd like more information, I'm happy to follow up with you if you leave your contact information. And thank you for the question.
Yeah, and if anyone has further questions about things, feel free to email us, call us anytime. I kind of deliberately kept a lot of our comments high level because I don't want to get into the weeds of too many things, but we definitely can discuss this more like in person, or I'm sorry, one-to-one. But yeah, if you ever need any assistance from our office, you can contact us any of these ways. You can email us, you can call us. Calling us, honestly, is good if you have an urgent issue, so you can definitely call us. I would say the 408 number is the best one, especially if you're from our district. And then you can contact us on our website. Obviously, having our event this Saturday, our Vetoed Bills event will actually also be at the Farmers Market in Milpitas on Sunday, I believe, unless I'm not getting all my dates mixed up. We'll be handing out tote bags, so come by, say hello. I'll be there. I always come to our tabling events. And yeah, well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today for our 1 year recap of all the things we've been doing. It's my great honor to serve and represent the 25th Assembly District as your state assembly member. And really, I'm here for you. And if you have more ideas and ideas for bills or things you want to change in our community, please let us know. Even sometimes if they're not directly within our wheelhouse of ideas, I'm always happy to partner with your local organization, your local community, volunteer group or anything like that, or even if you are a local elected official. I love cross collaborating between levels because we cannot always be siloed. And in a lot of the town halls we did, now I remember we did a lot of town halls about the pandemic and also the drought. We collaborate with all our cross different agencies and different levels of government. Always love that collaboration because we can leverage our resources and share knowledge a lot better. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your commitment to making a better society. And I really am committed to doing that, working for the people and making sure that our government is a tool to help people. So thank you everyone for attending. If you got any questions or want to follow up, please do contact us and stay safe out there. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night.